Page 14 deals with quadratic graphing. We've actually done both of these in class now, so I don't think that you're going to see anything different in these problems than we did in class. But it's a good idea to look at it just to make sure you have the procedure down. The first thing that we do with a quadratic equation is figure out what the A, B, and C values are. A is always the number next to x squared, B is next to x, and C is always the regular number on the end. So A is 3, B is 6, and C is 1. By the way, I asked everyone in class to change that from 2x to 6x. So if you didn't get that and you're wondering why it's different, go ahead and change it. All right, after that, it's all about saying whether or not you want to do each step. You need to do each one in a row. So the first one is whether the graph is up or down. Because A is positive, we're going to say this is an upward graph. Then we do axis of symmetry. And this is done by using the formula x equals negative b over 2a. And so we plug in b, which is 6. So we get negative 6 over 2a is 3. So that we get negative 6 over 6, which is equal to negative 1. So our axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. Okay, at this point we can actually go to the graph and make a start to this graph anyway. I'm going to try to make this thing kind of centered so that it doesn't bother those of you who are troubled by such things. So here's what we know so far. We know our graph is going to be upward. We know the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. I'm going to make each one of these things be 2 blocks, just because it'll sort of expand our graph and make it look a little easier to see. So every 2 blocks is going to be 1. You can do that on yours, or you can choose to make it by 1. It doesn't matter. But x equals negative 1. Okay, for my graph, that means I'm going to put a symmetry line, a vertical line, right where x is negative 1. So just like this. What this does is this tells me exactly where the parabola is going to be centered around, this line. So now I have to go back and work on the next step. The next one is to get the vertex. The vertex starts out as a coordinate point, and the x value you already know from the previous step, right there. To get this value, you have to take your x and go back to the original equation and substitute it in. So all I'm doing now is substituting my answer from step 3 into the equation. Negative 1 squared is 1, times 3 is 3, 6 times negative 1 is negative 6, and plus 1. Grand total answer of negative 2, which goes here. So we can go back to the graph. Now we can say we know our vertex is negative 1, negative 2. And you can go ahead and plot that. Negative 1 and down to right here. Okay, and then we go back. And our last step is the y-intercept. We know the y-intercept is equal to c, so we can say our y-intercept is equal to 1. So back to our graph one more time. Y-intercept equals 1. That means we go to our graph and put a point. We're on the y-axis at 1. reason you draw this symmetry line is so you can say, all right, I have a distance of 2 squares this way. That means that I have a mirror image point on the other side, which is 2 squares away from that line as well. When you're done with that, you can draw your graph. So now you have your parabola done. You can answer the questions max and min. The minimum here is right here. It stops at -2. So our minimum value that it will ever get is -2. And the maximum, these arrows indicate it goes on forever. So the maximum is infinity. Positive infinity. We're going to approach the next problem the exact same way, but I think we can do it a little quicker because now you've seen all the steps in the other one. So I can say that A is -2, B is -4, and C is also -2. This graph is going to go down because A is negative. The axis of symmetry will be a negative B, so B is -4 plus the negative from the formula, and 2 times -2 for A. So 4 over -4 gives us -1 again. For the vertex, it's going to be -1 and whatever we get for y. So we go -2 times -1 squared minus 4, a -1 and a -2. -1 squared is 1 times 2 is -2. This is +4 and -2. You get 0. So our vertex is -1, 0. And finally, the y-intercept is just equal to c, so it is -2. So see, when you get the hang of these, they're really not that long of a problem. And because the pattern is always the same over and over again, it becomes so fast and so quick that the only mistakes people usually make are little ones, negatives and so on. And if you do that, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff can end up wrong. So you want to really take your time, but remember that they are really the same pattern over and over again. So for the graph of this one, we need our symmetry line at x is -1. So again, I'm going to make each one of these squares a half, or in other words, make every 2 blocks one value. So our symmetry line is at x equals -1, just like the last problem. I noticed in class that a lot of people were worried when they got this -1, 0 value. So the vertex is right on the x-axis. That's not a big deal. What is it? The y-intercept was -2. So we put a point there. 2 blocks away on this side, we put a mirror image point, and we can draw our graph. And if we enter the max and min for these, this time the maximum value is right here. It never goes higher than that, which is 0. Y is 0 right there. And the minimum value, these arrows extend forever, so we get negative infinity. That's up to page 14. That's the end of your running test as of now.